Hi there, how's it going? In this video, we will be talking about WebDriver IO testing framework. By the end of this video, you would have learned what WebDriver IO is, how you can set it up in your machine, and how you can write end-to-end UI tests using WebDriver IO. So let's take a look at the topics that we will be covering in this video. So first off, we will do a short introduction on WebDriver IO, talk about what it is and the advantages of using WebDriver IO. From there, we will begin the setup and installation to get WebDriver IO working in our local machine, and then we will run some existing tests that were generated automatically during setup and understand the WebDriver IO syntax as well as go over how the tests are written. After then, we will create our first test from scratch and implement page-object model for that test. Then we will talk about how waits work in WebDriver IO, and then write a test that will utilize us to use one of the wait commands. And finally, we are going to generate Aleo reports to see our test results. I hope you guys are excited to learn WebDriver IO, so let's get started and talk about what is WebDriver IO. So WebDriver IO is an open source testing framework built to automate modern web and mobile applications. So you can use the WebDriver protocol to do cross-browser testing, as well as you can use the Chrome DevTools protocol for Chromium-based automation using Puppeteer. And for mobile automation, you can use APM to automate your mobile applications. So a lot of people think that WebDriver IO is just a JavaScript version of the Selenium WebDriver. But that's not true. The WebDriver IO is not just a binding for WebDriver protocol, like the Selenium is. It is a full test framework with numerous additional features and utilities. So WebDriver IO takes the protocol commands and creates smart user commands that make using that protocol for test automation much easier. It also enhances the WebDriver package with its own additional commands. And because of all of these additional functionalities, WebDriver IO is becoming one of the most popular test automation frameworks in the industry. Let's talk about what are some of the advantages of using WebDriver IO. So first off, it's easy to get started with for beginners. You can literally get your setup and installation done under 10 minutes and get your first test running in the browser. You don't have to download any browser drivers and figure out the configuration yourself. You can just run the WebDriver IO install and config command, which will do all the work for you. And another advantage is with WebDriver IO, you can use the sync mode, which will run all of your commands synchronously. And because of that, the readability of your code will improve significantly. So the next one is the built-in waiting. So with WebDriver IO, it provides built-in wait mechanism that automatically explicitly wait on the element before interacting with it, hence making your test stable and reduce flakiness in your framework. Another great advantage of using WebDriver IO is that it has support for various services, which makes a lot of complex integration really easy. So for example, if you need to set up your test with BrowserStack or SauceLab, you can do that by using one of the existing services and get everything set up within minutes. And there are a lot of community built services with WebDriver IO to help you get your tasks done smoothly. It also has great integration with popular CI tools such as Jenkins, Bamboo, Travis, GitHub, and so on. And they also have great documentation on how you can get started with each one of them. Alright, now that we know what WebDriver IO is and the advantages of using WebDriver IO, let's go ahead and get started with setting up WebDriver IO in our machine. The first thing I need you to do is open up Terminal or any command line tool that you have. In my case, I'm going to open up ConMU in Windows. And here I want you to check that you have Node and NPM installed in your machine. And you can do that by doing node-v. This will print out the Node version for you. In my case, I have version 14.15.3. And if you don't really get anything back over here, in that case, you're going to have to install Node in your machine. And I will add the link for that in the description below. And if you need to check your NPM version, you can also do that by doing npm-v. This will print out your NPM version as well. So the prerequisite is that you need to have Node.js installed in your machine. And you need to have at least version 12.16.1 installed or higher. And I would recommend you to just go ahead and install the latest version that's available right now, so that you don't run into any compatibility issues. And once you install Node, it will also install the NPM for you as well. And the next thing I want you to do is cd into the directory where you want to install WebDriver IO. In my case, I have cd'd into my Automation Bureau directory. And over here, I'm going to install WebDriver IO. The first thing I'm going to do is create a new directory. I'm going to call that one wdio-v7 as we're using the version 7. And then I'm going to cd into that directory. There you go. So now I'm in the WebDriver IO version 7 directory. From here, I'm going to initialize my npm package. So I will do that by doing npm init-y. So this created this package JSON for me. And now I can go ahead and install WebDriver IO CLI. To do that, I just need to run a single command. I will do npm install at wdio /CLI. So this will install the WebDriver IO CLI tool, which will help us install WebDriver IO in our project. So I'm going to hit enter. So I'm going to wait for this to be installed and then I will be back. So the WebDriver IO CLI is now installed. Now we're going to use the CLI to configure our WebDriver IO project. And we can do that by typing npx wdio config. So what this is doing is it's going into the node modules in our project. From there, it's going to the WebDriver IO CLI, and then we're trying to run the config command from there. So let me hit enter. Now this is the WebDriver IO configuration helper. So here we have a bunch of options. So the first one is where do we want to install our automation? So in this case, I can install it on my local machine, or I have an option to install it any cloud providers, for example, Experitest, SauceLab, BrowserStack, or I can set up my own Selenium cloud. In my case, I'm going to keep it on my local machine. Then with WebDriver IO, you have option to pick the frameworks that you want. So you have Mocha, Jasmine, or Cucumber. So here I'm going to go with Mocha. The next thing is we have the option to decide whether we want to run the WebDriver IO command synchronously or asynchronously. In this case, I'm going to decide that we want to run it synchronously because that makes reading a WebDriver code a lot easier. After that, we have an option to decide if you want to use the compiler. So if you're using TypeScript, you can go with TypeScript, or if you're using Babel, you can set a Babel over here. In my case, I'm going to do I don't want any compiler. And then it's asking me where does it want the test to be located. I will keep the default location. Then the next thing is whether WebDriver IO should auto-generate some test files. And I do want it to auto-generate some files so that we can quickly run them. I'm going to hit yes. And whether we want to use the page object model, I will also say yes because we want to use that. And then this is basically where your page object should be located. So I'm going to keep the default location, which is under the test directory, and then page objects. All right, and the last thing is which reporter do we want to use? So here I'm going to, by default, it comes with spec reporter. Then I have option to use the other ones like Dart, JUnit, Allure, or basically any of the reporting that you want to go with this. So I'm going to go with the Allure as well as the spec reporter over here. Okay, so then I will hit enter again. So the reporter was not the last thing. The last thing is which service we want to use. In this case, we can decide whether we want to run a test on Chrome driver, or once again on Sauce, Testing Bot, or Selenium standalone, or basically any other services that we have over here. And there are a lot of options here. Like I was telling you in the beginning that WebDriver IO provides a bunch of services, which we can go ahead and decide whichever one we want to go with. In my case, I'm going to keep it simple and just go with Chrome driver. And then it's asking me for the base URL. This is the URL that we will be hitting once we will be running a test. By default, it selects localhost. But what I'm going to do is just put in the Internet Heroku app over here and make this one our default base URL. And then I will hit enter. So now it's going ahead based on a configuration that we have selected. It's installing all the necessary packages. So we can see that it's installing the local runner. It's installing Mocha framework. It's installing spec reporter, Allure reporter, Chrome driver, and the synchronous WebDriver IO along with Chrome driver over here as well. So this one is the Chrome driver service and this is the actual driver. So we're going to wait for all of this to be installed and then we're going to go ahead and open up our project in VS Code or any code editor that you want to use. Alright, so all the packages have been installed now. And here it's actually telling us if you want to run a test, we can just do it by doing the npx wdio run and wdio.const.js. And we will talk about what this const.js is. But for now, let's try to run the test to see what happens. So I'm just going to copy this command. And then I will paste it here and then hit enter. And it spun up this Chrome browser right here. Let's just wait. So it's going to the Internet Heroku app. And then it's going to log in. It's trying to log in. And then it just logged out. Or basically closed our driver. And we can see that our test successfully passed over here. And this was basically my login application. And it should log in with valid credential. That was our test name. So just under 5 minutes, we were able to go ahead and set up WebDriver IO and also run our first test in Chrome driver. So this is one of the great things with WebDriver IO, that we haven't written a single line of code and we were able to run this test. So let's open up this directory in a code editor and take a look at this test that we just ran. So in my case, I'm going to be using VS Code. So I can open that up by doing code dot, which is a shortcut that I've set up in my machine. And this will open up VS Code for me right over here. And let me just expand this. So when we ran a test, we pointed it to this wdio.const.js. So let's take a look at this file to see what exactly is in it. So in this file, we have a bunch of stuff. And if I move this down, this is total 276 line of code. And this is all the configuration related to WebDriver IO. The first one is the runner configuration. So this is where we said, okay, we want this test to be running locally. So that's what we have here. Then we have the specs. Specs are the actual tests that we are running. So we are saying, hey, just run everything that is under the specs directory, which is basically our test folder. And under test, we have the specs directory right over here. And we just have one test right now that we ran. From there, we have an option if you want to exclude something. We're not excluding anything right now. And if I move further down, we have something called max instances, and we will look into this shortly. Basically, this allows you to do parallel testing. And in the capabilities, we are actually telling what we are running. So I have the browser name Chrome, so that I'm running this in the Chrome browser. So that's the only thing I need to tell it, that, okay, just run this in Chrome browser, and it will start running a test in the Chrome browser. Then from there, we have the options of log level. We can change the amount of log we want to see. If you want to see all the way, like everything that's happening behind the scenes, we can do trace. Or if you don't want to see anything, we can do silent. And the next one is our base URL, which we set up in our configuration, which is right over here. And we will take a look at how we can take advantage of this base URL. And after that, we have some configuration related to the weights. So I'm going to leave it the way it is, the default one. And for the service, we install the Chrome driver service. And using this, we were able to actually spin up our Chrome browser. Then for our framework, we mentioned that we're going to be using Mocha. And for the reporter, we are saying we need spec as well as the Alia reporter. Then we have some options for Mocha right over here, which I'm going to ignore. And if I go all the way down, so we have a bunch of hooks, and these are all commented out code, except for this one, which is for Allure. And we will look into this also shortly after. And then we have some other codes related to the hooks that are part of WebDriver IO. So that's pretty much it in terms of our configuration file for WebDriver IO. And this is everything that we have set up when we just ran our WebDriver IO CLI config command. Now let's take a look at the test that we ran. If I go to the example.e2e.js, if you notice, our test is really simple. On the top, we are importing a login page as well as the secure page. And these are the two pages that are part of our website. So we have a login page and we have a secure page. So we are importing that. And then we have a describe block. So if you're familiar with Mocha, you would know with describe block, you're basically grouping bunch of tests. So here we just have one test. So we are grouping that. But I can kind of group multiple tests under this describe block. The id block is our actual test. So here I have named this one. It should log in with valid credential. And then within the callback right over here is what the test that we have set up. So the first thing we are doing is opening up the login page. So this is going ahead and opening the login page. Then we are logging in using this credential, which is Tom Smith and our super secret password. And from there, we are going ahead and doing the expect. This is our assertion. We are making sure that the flash alert shows up. And then we are making sure that the alert message should be this. Now, so far, you don't even know the website that we are running, but you can just read this code and understand what it's trying to do. And that's the advantage of using page object model. It makes our code really readable. And we know just by looking at the code that what exactly is trying to do and what our actual expected behavior is when we will be running our test in our browser. So let me open up Chrome to show you what exactly this is trying to do. So this is the website that we are using, which is internet.herokuapp.com. And here we are going to the login page. So I can go to the login page by doing /login. So on a login page, we are entering the username and password. So I can copy that here and paste it here. Then we are entering our password, which is this. Then we click on the login button. And this basically locks us into the secure area. So here we are verifying this alert message, which is you logged in into the secure area. Now, if I go back and take a look at my test, you can see this is what we are doing. We were going to the login page. We were logging in with this credential. Then we were making sure that the flash alert is actually there using this expect assertion. And then we are making sure that the text contained you logged into a secure area. And that's the exact same thing that we did over here. So right now our code is using the page object model. So behind the scenes, we are actually calling the WebDriver IO commands. And we can take a look at this. So when I call login page.open, let's see what exactly is happening. So here I went into this page object. So this is the login.page.js. And this is what we were importing right over here. So we are importing page objects /login.page. Now if I go there, so this is what's happening here. Our login page is extending page. So basically it's inheriting the base page over here. So let's go there and take a look at what's happening there. So in my base page, I have a simple class, which is class page. And then in that class, I have an open method. So this open method, what we are doing is we are going to this URL, which is internet.herokuapp.com, and then we are passing in the path. This path is what gets picked up when you actually call this open method. So that's all we are doing in our page right over here. So this is our base page. If I close that, a login page is taking advantage of that base page. And then right here, it's actually calling that. So we can see it's doing super.open. It's calling in our super class. And then it's using the open method and it's going to the login. So basically the login page. So it's going to the base URL/login. After that, we're calling this login helper method, which is basically taking in username and password, and then it's trying to do a set value. What this does is it's actually type in into your input field. So set value, same as send keys, or basically typing something in the field. So we type in a username, we type in our password, and then we do .click to actually click on that button. And over here, we have some getter functions, and this is where we are actually calling that a selector. So we have our username selector, or basically the username element, password element, and then the actual button. So what we do is in our login method, we call them, we set something values that basically type something in there using set value, and then we click on the button submit. Once we do that, if I go back to our example test, after we are logged in, we are making sure that we are actually in that secure page. Now, if I go to the secure page, this is the page that's doing the same thing. It's extending the page class. After that, we have our getter method, which is defining the selector right over here. Now, using that selector, I'm making sure that it's actually there on the page, and then I'm making sure that the text contains this value. So if this seems a little bit confusing to you, don't worry, we will go ahead and create a test from scratch so that you understand how the overall end-to-end process works. Alright, so with this test, we were able to actually log in and we made sure that we are in the secure area. So let's go ahead and actually try to log out and make sure that we are successfully logged out. I'm going to go back to Chrome, and here we actually logged in, so we were able to complete this much step. We were logged in, and then what I will do is try to log out. I will click on logout button. Then I will make sure that this text says that you have logged out of secure area. So here I'm going to first of all get some elements. I'm going to do inspect. I'm going to try to select this element. And this is basically my button, and it has the href logout. So I'm going to use this href logout. And then once I log this out, right now my text changed over here and it says you logged out of the secure area. So this is the test we're going to create. Really simple. Once we are logged in, we're going to make sure that we can log out, and then we're going to verify this text right here. So let's go ahead and implement that. I'm going to go back to VS Code. And here I can create a new test. So to create a new test, I'm going to create my it block. And in by it block, I'm going to name this one. It should log out. So I've named this test should log out and verify logout alert message. And then we can go ahead and start creating a test. So the first thing we need to do is click on that logout button. So every time you write your test, you need to make sure the elements that you're going to be interacting with. So in our case, we're going to be interacting with the button as well as that alert message over there. So I'm going to create that here. So I can create a new variable and I can call that one button logout. And then here we're going to add in our element. So in my case, it was a tag with an href that was basically logout. So this is my element, which is basically my tag with an href of logout. So currently this is just a basic string. To make this a WebDriver IO element, what I can do is I can type in dollar in front of it. The moment I add in dollar and basically add in parentheses, I made this a WebDriver IO element. What that does is it is equivalent to doing a find element on this particular element. So when I will run this test, what WebDriver IO will do is it will go ahead and try to find this element. But if I don't do this dollar, it will simply take this as a string. Or basically it's just a variable that we have created that contains this string. But the moment I add in this dollar, our WebDriver IO will go ahead and try to find this element on the page. And I will add this here just for your information. So this will do a find element for this particular element. All right, the next thing we need to do is try to get that alert message, right? So we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to create another variable, call this one alert flash, or maybe you can say flash alert to just keep it the same thing over here. And similarly, I'm going to add that over here as well. So that one is, let's see what that alert message is. I'm going to copy this. So this is then ID of flash. So let's add that there as well. So I'm going to add in a pound sign and just say this is an ID with flash. And same thing to make it a WebDriver IO element. I will add in a dollar in front and then parentheses. Now, if you notice one thing, I haven't told WebDriver IO that you need to find this element using the CSS selector, or you need to find this element using an ID. The way WebDriver IO is set up, it is smart enough to know that we're trying to use a CSS selector here, and then we're trying to use an ID over here. So we don't have to do something like find this element by ID, find this element by XPath, or find this element by CSS selector. WebDriver IO will automatically figure this out by itself, and all you have to do is just pass in that string, or basically the value for that particular element. And we can see this in action once we start running this test. So we have already added in our elements here, which is good. The next thing we're going to do is try to click on the logout button. So I'm going to do button logout dot, and I can call the click method or the click command. The moment I do this, it will click on this logout button. And then I'm going to make sure I'm checking in the flash alert message. So this is going to be the same as what we did over here, except I'm not using page object model right now. So I'm just going to do expect. And then here I will say flash alert dot to have text containing. And then I'm going to make sure that the text that I need to be seeing is going to be, let's copy that, you logged out of the secure area, and then paste that over here. So overall, this is the test that we have created. First off, we find the elements. So our two elements was the logout button as well as the flash alert message. Then we are clicking on the logout button. So this is the action I'm taking. And then I'm doing the assertion. So if you're familiar with triple A's, which is arrange, action, assert, this is what we are doing. So we are arranging all of our elements. We are taking the action by clicking on that button, and then we are asserting. And the assertion, we are making sure that we are seeing this text. So let's run this test to see if this would work for us. To run the test, we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to just run this by doing npx wdio. And I can type in wdio.conf.js, but this is optional. By default, it will pick up wdio.conf.js. So I'm just going to run this by doing npx wdio. All right, there you go. Both of our tests passed. The first one was it should log in with valid credential. The second one is it should log out and verify the logout alert message. And both of them over here successfully passed, and it took overall 2.7 seconds. So that's pretty awesome. So guys, this is how easy it is to write a WebDriver IO test. And if you look at this code over here, it's extremely readable. Someone can come in and they know right away what exactly is happening. Now, right now, I haven't even implemented page object model for this particular test, but even after that, we can know exactly what's happening. Here I'm trying to find the elements, here I'm trying to click on the button, and here I'm trying to do my assertion. So let's actually go ahead and implement page object model for this particular test. So how can we do that? So here what we need to do is focus on which page we are interacting with. So our button logout was part of our secure page. Now we'll go to my secure page, and in the secure page, I'm going to add in another selector right over here, or another getter method. So I will call this one get button logout. Then I'm going to do return and then paste in my selector right over here. So that's it. I've created a new selector that is part of my secure page, and I can call that now directly. So here, instead of calling this, I'm going to get rid of this entire thing. And now in my button logout, I can call this one by doing secure page dot button logout dot click. Same thing for my flash alert. My flash alert is already part of my secure page, which is right over here. So I can just take advantage of that. I'm just going to do secure page dot flash alert. And then I will keep rest of the things same there. Then I will get rid of this. So there you go. We extracted out all the selectors that were part of our test, and we have moved them into its relevant pages. And then from there, we are just simply calling that page object method. So let's try to run this test to see if it still works for us. Okay, so as expected, our test is still working successfully. So far we have created our own test from scratch, and we have also implemented page object model for that particular test. So if you remember, when we were interacting with this element, we were using the single dollar right over here. So we're using the single dollar, which was finding the element, or basically the individual element. So it goes in, it finds that individual element, and then we go ahead and do whatever action we want to do after that. So whether that could be clicking on that button, whether that would be setting a value to type something in. But let's say if you are interacting with multiple elements, what would happen at that point? So let's take a look at an example of that. If I go back to this, and here I'm going to go back to the home page. On the home page, let's see if you want to make sure that you have all of this list items right here. And if I select this, so you can see we have all of this ally items, right? And these are all of the list items that are here that are part of my page. Now here, let's see if you want to write a test to ensure that this list item should be minimum of length 1, or it should have a total length of, let's say, whatever X length that is over here, and we can check the actual length. For example, if I type in ul ally, you can see that the total length is 44 right here. The total 44 list items that are part of this page. So let's say if you want to write a test to make sure that the list size should be of total 44, we can do that quite easily with WebDriver IO as well. So let's go ahead and implement that. So here, instead of working with the same test, we're going to create a new test file. So here in my specs, I'm going to create a new file, and I'm going to call this one main.e2e.js, since this is my main page. And here I'm going to create a describe and an id block. And in my describe block, I can call this one main page. And in my id block, I can name this one verify list items. Now I can start writing my tests from scratch. Since I've already showed you how to use page object model over here, I'm going to be skipping that for this particular test to make sure that we quickly go through the actual test that we're going to be testing instead of just implementing page object model. But you can very easily just create a new page, call that one main.page.js, and then any elements that we're putting over here, you can put that over there, and then same way, just the way we are calling it right here, you can import that here as well. The first thing we need to do is go to that particular page. So in our case, the page is going to be this Internet Heroku app, and it's that my home page. So I want to make sure that I go over there. I can do that by doing browser.url, and then I can paste the entire URL right here. Now this is one way of doing it. The other way to do this is by just putting in / over here. So what this will do is it will go to my configuration right over here, and it will take a look at the base URL. And the base URL I have is this particular thing right here. So it will try to access this base URL, and then it will go ahead and try to see if that base URL works. So I'm just going to leave it this way by doing browser.url and just do a /, which will call my configuration file and check for the base URL. So now let's add a selector here. So for my selector, I'm working with the list examples. I'm going to create a new variable. I'm going to call this one list examples. And then I'm going to add in my selector, which was basically a UL list. So since we're using a single dollar over here, it's going to try to find an individual element. So what this will do is it will go ahead and find the first element instead of finding all the elements. In order for us to find all the elements, we need to pass in $. So what this will do is try to find all the elements for this list item. So it will do a find elements call to find all of the elements. So just remember, before we were doing find element, this time we are doing find elements. And then here I can simply add in my assertion. So I'm going to do expect. And then I will say the list examples. And then here I can get the size of my array. So for that, I will use to_be elements array of size. And if you remember, the size of those elements were 44. So I'm just going to pass that in over here and then try to run this test to see if this works for us. So to run this test, if I do npxwdio, what this will do is it will try to run everything under the specs folder. But this is not what I want. I just want it to run the main test, right? So I can pass in -test spec flag, and then here I can say only run the main test. So I can point it to that particular test file. So I can do that by doing test and then just do specs and then point it to my main.e2e.js. So we ran a test and it actually failed. And the error we are getting is saying that the expect to_be element array of size is not a function. So let's take a look at why that happened. So this function that we're trying to use to_be elements array of size, so I made a typo here. So this should be O capital instead of small o. And now it should be fine. So let's try to run the test again and see if this works this time. All right, so this time we ran a test and it successfully passed right over here. So that's pretty great. Now just to make sure our test is successfully working, let's try to fail our test and make sure this works. So I'm going to go back and here I'm going to change this 44 to 45 and then I will run the test again. This time our test should fail and that would mean that our assertion was actually working. So in the background, you can see that it's trying to make sure that the actual element is actually 45. So it made multiple calls in the background to make sure that the text is 45 or basically the length is 45. So you can see we got the error. The expected was 45, instead the received was 44, which is good because we know that the received value is 44. So I can go back here and quickly change this to 44. And now we know that this assertion is actually working. So far we have verified how we can fetch an individual element as well as how we can fetch multiple elements. And then we also looked into a couple of assertions too. We looked into our assertion which was to have text containing right over here, to be existing, as well as the one we just looked at which is to_be elements array of size. So if you don't know which assertion to use, you can actually go to the documentation and take a look at all the assertions that are available by WebDriver.io. So if I go over here, you can see in the expect assertion, I can find all the different matches that I have. So I have to have URL, to have URL containing, to have title. I can check whether something is displayed, something is visible, whether something exists, as well as all of the other assertions right over here. So this is a really nice helper guide which you can take a look at and see which assertion you should use for your particular use case. So for our test, we mentioned that the size should be 44. And while that is good and it's actually working, this is actually not the best test to write. Because let's imagine if someone goes ahead and add in another list item, our test would fail because here we're checking for this hard-coded 44 value. Instead, what we should do is probably check for something that the list item is actually present. So here what I can actually do is make sure that I have at least one item in my list. So what I can do is just check for the length and I can do it should be greater than or equal to 1. So by just typing in GTE, I'm saying that it should be greater than or equal to 1. So it will do the same thing. It will go ahead and try to find the list item and it will make sure I have at least one item over there. So this is good because this way my test is a lot more stable. I can go ahead and keep adding in as many list items as I want, or I can even go ahead and delete some list item. My test would still work as long as it's still greater than or equal to 1. And I can run this test to make sure this is still working. So there you go, our test passed and it's successfully working. So now the next thing we're going to look at is how weights work in WebDriver IO. So for that, let's take a look at one of the tests that we're going to be working with. So here I'm back on the Internet Hero Co website. So if I go to dynamic loading over here, so this will open up this dynamic loaded page elements. And I'm going to click on the first one. So here I have an element on the page that is hidden. And if I click on start, we see this loader. And after this loader is completed, we're going to see a text which is hello world right over here. So this is the test that we're going to write. We'll go ahead, click on the button, and then we're going to make sure that we can see this hello world text. So it seems pretty straightforward. Let's try to implement this and see what happens. So once again, for this, I'm going to create a new file. And I'm going to call this one dynamic loading.e2e.js. You can name it anything you want. I'm just going to keeping the same convention as the page name. I will create a new describe block and an init block. I will name this one dynamic loading page. Then I will name my it block. So I will say wait for the hidden element to show. All right, so now let's go ahead and create a test. So for this test, let's take a look at the selectors that we're going to be working with. So I'm going to go back to my page and I'm going to hit enter here. So the first thing we have is the start button. So let's try to find this element. So this one is an ID with start. So that's pretty straightforward. Then we have an ID with finish, which has a display of none. And that's the actual text we are actually looking for. So this hello world is the text that we're looking for. So we have two elements, which is the start element as well as the finish element. So let's go ahead and try to implement this. So I'm going to create my selectors here. I'm going to call this one button start. And then I'm going to add in the selector. So this one is an ID with start. And then I have the text, which is finish. And then I will create that one here as well. Call this one finish. And that's an H4, so I'm going to add that as well. Now let's go to that page. I'm going to do browser.url. This time I'm not going to do / because when I do that, it's going to go to the home page. Instead, what I want it for it to go to the dynamic loading page. I'm going to go back here, copy everything after the / and then put that in my test. I will put it over here. So it will go to Internet Hero Co app, and then from there it will go to dynamic loading /1. Then once it is on that page, I want it to click on the start button. So I will do button start.click. So far we already know how to do all of this. So I will quickly move ahead. And then I'm going to add in my assertions. So I'm going to do expect my text finish to equal. And then I will say it should be equal to hello world. There you go. So pretty straightforward test. We have added in our start button. We click on that button. Then we make sure that the text should be hello world. Let's try to run this and see if this works for us. So to run this time, I'm going to do same thing npxwdio and pass in the spec flag. And then I'm going to point this one to the new file which we just created. So it's test specs dynamic loading.e2e.js. Let's try to run this and see what happens. Okay, so our test failed. And if I go up to see what happened, there's a bunch of things that we are seeing. So we were expecting it to be hello world. Instead, we got a function, which is this add command function right over here. And then we are seeing this unable to locate that element. So it cannot even locate this finish H4. And we know that it is actually there on the page, right? If I go back here, I can search for, let's say, found finish H4. I can see that it is coming up. I can see one node here and it's actually there, but we are not able to find that. So the weird thing is, instead of seeing the actual text, or basically seeing no such element, we are seeing this function. And the reason for that is if I go back to my test, and here I'm trying to check that the WebDriver IO element should equal to this text. And that's never going to be equal to this, right? Because this is the WebDriver IO element. Instead, what I'm going to make sure is the text from this element should equal to this. So for that, I can add in dot get text, which will give me the text from this element. And then I can go ahead and make sure that it should be matching to pretty much this. Let's run it this time and see what we get. All right, so this time we ran and it failed again. But if you notice here, the error we are getting is the expected was hello world, but the received was an empty string. So that's interesting. So this time we are not seeing that function error. Instead, we are seeing an error that we probably should be expecting. Because we were saying, hey, I need to see this hello world, but instead I'm getting an empty string back. Now we do know that it is not an empty string over there. Instead, we can see that hello world. But if you notice, if I go back, click on the start, at this point, I don't really see the text. The text only comes up when this loading button goes away. Now I can see the text. So we need to tell our test that, hey, wait for that loading to complete and then only go ahead and try to fetch that text. So one easy way to do is I can just tell my test to wait for a few seconds and then try to actually fetch this text. So let's implement that. So here I can say, hey, just wait for a few seconds. So I will do browser dot. So just the way you can add in a sleep, I can do browser.pause in WebDriver IO, which will take in time in milliseconds that it's going to wait. So here I'm going to say, hey, just wait for 5000 milliseconds. That is actually 5 seconds. So let me run this and see what happens. My test failed again. And this time the reason it's telling me is that here the same thing expected is there, but the received is this. So for some reason, it never ended up actually clicking the button. So let's see why that happened. If I go back and take a look at the start, I'm using the start element. So I'm using this entire thing. And if you notice when I hover over to it, it's actually hovering over to this entire section right over here. If you notice here, it's highlighting the entire section. Instead, what I just wanted to highlight this start button. What I need to do is pass in start and then also put in button in front. I will do button. Because if I don't do that, what it's actually trying to do is it's trying to click somewhere in the middle over here. And obviously when it's trying to do that, nothing is happening here. So I need to fix that. So I need to make sure that it only clicks this button right here. Let me go back there and fix my test. And here I'm going to say it should be start. And then this should be a button. And I'm just going to remove this pause for now, just to make sure that you guys know that this is without the pause, it's going to fail. And then when we add the pause, we will see what happens. Then let me run the test again. The expected should be that it should still fail because we're trying to verify for that particular text. And the text is actually not there. Okay, so this time it clicked the button. We saw the loading thing and then a test still failed and we saw the same error. Now to fix this, we can add that pause there. And now let's run this again. So if you can see, it's actually loading and it's waiting for that loading thing to go away. And now a test successfully passed. So we waited for 5 seconds and within that 5 seconds, the loading actually went away. And then we went ahead and tried to verify whether the text that is showing up should be hello world. And in that case, it was actually hello world. So technically our test is fixed now, right? Well, here's the thing. Yeah, it is fixed right now. But let's say if you run this in your CI/CD tool, at that point, if the server is slow, it might take more than 5 seconds for that loading screen to go away. Because let's imagine if you're making an API call, the response to come back could probably take 10 seconds, right? It might take more than 5 seconds for it to actually come back. So how can we fix that? Because we want to make sure that, hey, it doesn't matter how long it's taking. I want to make sure that it's actually waiting for X amount of seconds and it's doing a check to make sure, hey, whether that text is actually there on the screen. It's not, then it will wait again. Then it will check again whether the text is there. If it's not, it will wait again. In this scenario, what I'm doing is I'm waiting for exact 5 seconds or basically full 5 seconds and then I'm making sure whether the text is there. But let's say if the text was there after 6 seconds, my test would fail here because I was only waiting for 5 seconds, right? So to make sure my test is a lot more stable, we can use the wait commands in WebDriver IO. So the way that works is I can tell that, hey, wait for this text finish button or the text finish to actually show up. So I can do something like this. I will do text finish dot wait for displayed. I will make sure that this is displayed on the screen. Once this is displayed, then I want you to go ahead and verify the text for that particular element. Let's run this and see if this works. So this time our test passed again. But compared to the last time, what happened was you were not waiting for 5 seconds. what we were doing was waiting for this text finish element to show up on the screen. Once that element showed up, and it's very well possible that the element showed up, let's say in 2 seconds, or it might have showed up in, let's say 7 seconds, it doesn't really matter. Once it showed up, we said, okay, everything is good. This basically condition passed, and then we went ahead and verified whether the text is actually hello world. So using this wait command, we know our test is going to be a lot more stable compared to using this hard-coded pause over here. Now let's say if you want to implement other kind of waiting mechanism where you want to wait for that loading thing to show up, right? Here we're checking for the text to show up. But what if you also want to verify that the loading thing is showing up and that the loading thing goes away, then your text is actually coming up. Let's say if you want to implement a test, something like that. So how can we do that? Well, for this, we're going to make sure that we get the loading selector right here first. So for that, I'm going to click on this. I'm going to select the loading selector or the element here. And that one is just with an ID loading. Okay, so that's good. I will go back to my test. Here, I'm going to add in const loading. So this is an element. So I'm going to call element loading. And then I'm going to add in an ID here with loading. Now this time I'm going to say, hey, wait for this element loading to show up. It's going to be same thing as what we did here. So I will do element loading dot wait for displayed. So if you think that if I just comment this one out, if you think if I just run this, a test would work, well, think again, because here what we're saying is, all right, wait for that loading to show up, right? The moment that loading shows up, that doesn't necessarily mean our text is actually here or the text is actually on the screen, because the loading, as you know previously, that it can probably take a few seconds for that loading to go away. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that the loading shows up, and then we want to make sure that the loading goes away from the screen as well. So wait for it to appear and then wait for it to disappear from the screen. So the way we can do with WebDriver IO is I can do the same thing, and I can use the exact same command, which is wait for displayed. And here I can pass in a reverse flag. So I will say just do the reverse of the command that I'm passing it in. So the command I'm passing it is wait for displayed. The reverse of that would be wait for not displayed. So it's going to wait for this to be displayed, then it's going to wait for it to not display. And the moment it disappears from the screen, it will go ahead and try to implement this. So let's run this and see if this works. Alright, so we ran a test, and once again, a test successfully passed. So we did the same thing that we did before, except instead of waiting for the text, I was waiting for that loader screen. And then I also waited for the loader screen to go away from the screen. So guys, when it comes to waiting for some element, always make sure you're using some kind of waiting mechanism instead of using a hard-coded sleep. Because when you use hard-coded sleep, it might work at that point, but eventually you might run into a scenario where your test will actually fail. And you would not know why exactly this is failing because you added some random sleep somewhere in your code. So always make sure you're using this wait for displayed command or some kind of wait for command in your actual code. Now, if you're wondering how long is this thing actually waiting for, right? Because it cannot be waiting forever. And yes, that's true. It's not actually waiting for forever. What it is actually doing is waiting for maximum 10 seconds. And this is actually included in a configuration. So it's the wait for timeout we have. The default timeout for all wait for command is actually 10 seconds. So if within 10 seconds it's actually not coming up, it will throw an error that's saying that, hey, I was expecting this element to be displayed, except that element was not displayed even after 10 seconds. And if you want, you can always raise up that to, let's say, 15 seconds, 20 seconds, depending on your own use case. But I would not recommend for you guys to really bump it up unless it's really required. And you can also go ahead and implement it custom as well for that particular element. You can do, let's say, timeout here. And then within the timeout, you can say here, instead of waiting for 10 seconds, I want you to wait 15 seconds. So instead of implementing wait for all of the elements to 15, you can just maybe do it for one particular element for that particular use case. Alright, so that's all the tests that we're going to be writing in this video, guys. Hopefully by now you should understand how you can write your own WebDriver IO test and how you can also implement page object model, as well as how you can use WebDriver IO wait commands. Now the next thing we're going to look at is how we can do parallel testing with WebDriver IO. So far we were running this individual test, right? What if you want to run all of the tests? And I don't want to run just all of the tests one by one. I want to run all of the tests together. Let's see how we can do that. So for those of you that are wondering why we should be doing parallel testing, the reason for that is when you do parallel testing, you're running multiple tests in parallel. And that decreases the overall test execution time. So let's say if you run 3 tests, one after another, that might take you 20 seconds. But if you run all 3 tests at the same time, it will probably take you just 15 seconds. The reason for that is because now we are spinning up 3 separate browsers and we are running those tests in 3 separate browsers. So one test will run in one of the browser and other 2 will run in the other 2 browsers. So let's see how we can actually do that with WebDriver IO. So far when we were running a test, I was doing npx wdio and then passing in the spec flag. But if I don't pass in anything and just hit enter directly, And let me fix this. And if I just run it this way, let's see what happens. So here I'm spinning up this one Chrome browser, which is going to dynamic loading. Then this is the another one, which is going to the login page. Then I have another one, which is going to the home page. So we created 3 test files, and all 3 of them are doing separate things. And there you go. We finished running all the 3 tests, and it took overall 20 seconds. And if I scroll up, you can see that I ran this test in one Chrome browser, I ran the other one in another Chrome browser, and then I ran this one in another Chrome browser. And the session ID for all of these are actually different. You can notice the session ID is different here, session ID is different here, and the session ID is different here. So how is this running parallel, right? Because right now we haven't even done anything, and by default it is running parallel for us. And that's another great advantage of using WebDriver IO. They implement parallel testing by default for your test. And if I go to the configuration file right over here, and if I scroll all the way up, you remember we mentioned max instances when we were going over the configuration? So this is exactly what's allowing us to open up multiple browsers at the same time. Now if I change this one to, let's say, 1, and I try to run the test again, let's see what happens. So this time again, I'm running all those 3 files, but this time I'm running just this one browser. So it's going to dynamic loading first, and then it will test this one. And now it's going to open up another browser. There you go. It's going to test for this, which is my login page. It will make sure this works. Then it will open the third one, which is right here. All right, this time we ran all 3 of them, and it took 24 seconds. So slightly longer than the previous one that we did. But if you can imagine, let's say if we are doing parallel testing in 10 separate browsers, and if your machine supports it in your CI/CD tool, that will really speed up your overall test execution time. So I would always recommend for you guys to do parallel testing and write your tests in a way where you're able to do parallel testing. So if your tests are not dependent on each other, you can easily go ahead and do parallel testing. But if you're writing your tests in a way where one test depends on another one, then it's going to be really hard for you guys to implement parallel testing. So this is how you can do parallel testing with WebDriver IO. So I'm going to go back and change this one to 3, or I can actually change this to 5 as well. Just keep the default. Now the last thing we're going to look at is how reporting works with WebDriver IO. Now so far we have been seeing this spec reporter right here. But if you remember, in the beginning when we were configuring WebDriver IO, we also implemented Allure. And if you notice here, we are seeing this Allure results. If I open that up, in the Allure results we have all of this JSON files. So this JSON file, we will take a look at what exactly it's this. So to actually take advantage of this Allure results, what we can do is go back to our terminal, and here I'm going to use the Allure command, and I'm going to do generate, and then I'm going to pass in the Allure results, and then I will do end Allure open, and I will hit enter. Now when you will run this, if you run into an issue where Allure command is not found, then you might have to install Allure globally. So you might do npm install allure-g. That will allow you to use Allure command like this. So I will hit enter right here to see what happens. Okay, so on the left over here, you can see it says Allure report. So the results generated a report folder, and now it's opening this up in a new browser for me, which is right over here. And I can see all of my test results right here. So I can see 4 tests ran, all of them passed. I have my test, which is my login application, dynamic loading page, main page. So these are the 3 pages I created. I can go there to take a look at what exactly is happening there. So I can see it's trying to log in with valid credential. And then I can also see all the commands that it tried to make. So here, for example, I was trying to check for the response that the logged in user is actually there. Same thing for this one. I'm checking in for the response that the logout text is actually there. Similarly, I can see other stuff too. Now, if you're familiar with Allure, you probably know how this looks like. I can see all of my tests, the duration it took, different severity priority, and you can go ahead and keep customizing it the way you want. So to actually show what happens when a test fails, let's try to go ahead and actually fail our test. So far everything is working, right? But if I go back and try to fail one of the tests, maybe we can fail this one. Instead of saying you logged out of the secure area, I can say you logged in to the secure area. Let's see if I want to say that. And we know clearly that we just clicked out the logout button. This won't really work. Let's try to run this and see what happens. I'm going to execute all of the 3 tests again, and I will close this. Okay, so we finished running a test, and we can see our 2 tests passed and 1 failed. And here the expected was you logged into the secure area. Instead, what we got back was you logged out of the secure area, which is our expected text. Now the key thing is for us to see this failed test in our Allure report. For that, I'm going to do Allure generate, same thing what we did before. I'm going to do Allure-report, or actually try Allure.results. And I'm going to pass in the -- clean flag. What this will do is clean all the previous runs. And then I will go ahead and do Allure open. All right, so this time we can see our failed test, which is one over here. And we can see out of 4 test cases, 75% passed, 1 failed. And the failed test is actually showing up here. If I click on that, you can see that this is the failed test. And over here, we can see the text that we were trying to expect. So which is you logged into the secure area versus you logged out of the secure area. And if I scroll all the way down, you can see we have this call to the screenshot. If I go over there and click on the screenshot, I can see the exact screenshot of what exactly happened during the time when we ran the test and it actually failed. And clearly our text actually says you logged out of the secure area, which is what we're expecting over here as well. So if you're wondering how we got the screenshot when we haven't even configured anything, so well, this happened when we actually configured WebDriver IO with Allure in the beginning. And if I go back to our configuration file and show you here, and I scroll all the way down, here you can see in our after test, we are saying, hey, if the test doesn't pass, just take a screenshot. And when it takes a screenshot, it goes ahead and put that in our Allure report. So this is how exactly we are showing up the screenshot in the Allure reporter. Alright guys, that's pretty much it for this video. Let's quickly talk about what we covered in this video. So we talked about what is WebDriver IO and the advantages of using WebDriver IO. From there, we did our setup and installation and saw how easy it was to get started with WebDriver IO. After that, we ran our existing test and learned about the WebDriver IO syntax. Then we also wrote some of our own tests from scratch, and then we also talked about page object model. And then at the end, we generated our reports using the Allure reporter. So if you're interested in doing automation with JavaScript, you guys should definitely try out WebDriver IO. And if you would like to learn more about WebDriver IO and how it works, you can go to my channel, Automation Bro, which is youtube.com/automationbro, and check out all the videos to help you get started from scratch, all the way to setting up your test in CI/CD tool. Also, I have many other videos too on different topics, which you can feel free to check it out. That's it from my side, guys. Hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below which UI automation framework you used today and why you like using that. Thanks again for watching this video. We'll see you all next time.